Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Hopefully that's out of here. I was looking at the weather for the weekend. Should be a good one here in South Louisiana, and I think it's going to be good in Gainesville, Florida as well. LSU and Florida coming up at 2:30 Central Time from the Swamp. It'll be on ABC. And I wrote a piece at LouisianaSports.net talking about the matchups that I'll be looking for in this game. And I put this caveat in there, and I believe this. I'm not just going for hot takes here. I felt like I had a really good pulse on LSU and USC. I thought it was going to come down to how well can LSU run the ball and how well can USC throw it. And in the end, LSU couldn't run the ball, and USC threw it whenever they wanted to at the end of the game and went on 2 touchdown drives to win it. And I felt like I had a pretty good pulse on that one entering it, and it kind of played out the way I thought. Now, I've gone back and forth in a lot of different games up until this one with what matchups to watch and how things are going to go. But I feel really confident about the way that this thing will go on Saturday in terms of matchups to watch. The first one is Florida's offensive line against LSU's front seven. If you tell me how that goes, I will tell you how this game goes. Because Florida's got some injury issues. I don't know if Lagway is going to play. I don't know if Eugene Wilson's going to play. I'm not sure. But if you tell me how that matchup goes up front between Florida's offensive line and LSU's front seven, I will tell you how the game plays out. Because if Florida cannot push LSU around and run the ball and create seams, and they can't block LSU off the edge, their offense has no chance because Lagway's not prepared to go nuts if he plays, and certainly if you go to the backup quarterback, he has no chance. Aiden Warner is not going to hurt LSU in this game, in my estimation, if he can't just hand the ball off to 3 really talented running backs. I don't know if Montrell Johnson's going to play or not either. There are a lot of caveats, but all of them are insignificant in my estimation when you look at, okay, I don't care who's running the ball for Florida. It just depends on how their offensive line plays. And if LSU, from a defensive perspective, plays up front like they did against Arkansas, plays up front like they did against Ole Miss, they will stymie Florida, and Florida will not score 21 points in this game. If Florida can turn around and hand the ball off and run it like they did right down Kentucky's throat, 197 yards in that game, program record 5 touchdowns. Well, if they do that against, and Kentucky's got a couple pros in the defensive front, well, no matter who's playing quarterback for you. That is, to me, matchup number 1. It's not DJ Lagway running. It's not LSU's corners trying to cover. It's Florida's offensive line against LSU's front seven. That, to me, is huge. And that, again, is not some sort of breaking news that I think it's important to win the line of scrimmage. But I think it's Florida's only avenue. The second matchup in this game is Austin Armstrong, who was Florida's defensive coordinator, against Garrett Nussmeier. I leaned here on this matchup on the guys on the morning show this morning. They had Matt Flynn on, Jake and T-Bob were there, and they were going over a lot of the things that they saw Texas A&M and Alabama doing to Garrett Nussmeier. And we can all agree that his last 6 quarters have been his worst quarters of the season. And we can all agree that Florida is going to look at that tape and try to recreate it. Now, I don't think Florida's got the dudes that Texas A&M and Alabama have, but they're going to try. And one of the things that those guys were talking about was sending double A-gap pressure, was simulating that pressure and bailing out of it, and messing with Garrett Nussmeier's eyes and trying to speed him up. And the turnovers have just been too much. And on yesterday's show, I broke down all 11 of his interceptions, all 11 of them. And the majority of them have been due to a missed read. Whether he didn't see the safety, didn't know that somebody was going to be there, and made a throw that was very easy to intercept, not based on some tremendous athletic play by a secondary man going up over the top of an LSU receiver, based on the fact that he just kind of threw it right to him. I mean, that goal line interception that he throws against Alabama, it went right to the linebacker. He was on one receiver, peeled off to the next, and he just threw it right to him. That's a communication thing. That's a defensive scheme thing. And if Austin Armstrong can confuse Garrett Nussmeier, he'll throw it away. I wrote this in my piece at LouisianaSports.net. It feels to me unlikely that a Florida defense that ranks 15th in a 16-team SEC in scoring and rushing defense 13th in passing defense, 10th in sacks, and 9th in red zone defense, is going to completely shut down LSU's ability to move the ball. That seems unlikely to me. Not impossible. It seems unlikely to me that would happen. What does not seem unlikely is that Garrett Nussmeier could throw 3 interceptions because he misreads something, because the defensive coordinator made a good call and Nussmeier didn't read it. And that's not necessarily a Joe Sloan thing. It's more so a Garrett Nussmeier thing. So that matchup to me is huge. And then you've got the last one, which is intangible, I would suggest. And it's apathy. And it's right at LSU and Florida. And it's for different reasons. Florida has done a really good job handling disappointment this year. They have. They got hammered by Texas A&M at home a few weeks after getting smoked by Miami at home. And they showed up ready to play in Starkville against Mississippi State. They had Tennessee beat if Billy Napier would just go for 2 at the end of the game instead of playing conservatively with nothing on the line for his program and kicking the extra point. Gut-wrenching loss on Rocky Top. They played their best game of the year the next week against Kentucky. They weren't going to the SEC championship game. They're not going to the playoff. Their coach at that point was probably going to get fired. And they showed up and they played really hard. And I think that's realistic for his team, unless DJ Lagway doesn't dress out. Because you can say next man up all you want, but the fact of the matter remains that locker room is not stupid. And they know if Aiden Warner starts taking snaps, they got almost no chance to beat good SEC teams. Mediocre SEC teams. They were down 35-0 last week with that guy playing quarterback. They put it in the end zone one time against Georgia, but it was pretty inept other than that. Warner's not an SEC quarterback. He's an Ivy League transfer. And the players know that. And if he's the guy and they feel like, what? It's hard to fight that off. You're a defensive player and they're constantly turning the ball over or punting because you don't have an SEC quarterback out there, like, it can wear on you and you can bail. That's something Florida's going to have to fight. On the flip side, with LSU, a lot of your goals are off the table. You're not going to be an at-large. Now, I understand there is a way to make this thing happen to the SEC championship game. I understand. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it if we need to. But you've been talking about being a college football playoff team since August. Will Campbell talked about that before the USC game. That's unlikely now. You got, let's just call it what it was, embarrassed in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. Can you respond to that and go play? Apathy can set in. And you're not going to get, in my opinion, a big boost from the Swamp in terms of energy. I've been to the Swamp a lot. I went in 2006 when they were the national champions with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. I went in 2008 when they beat the absolute brakes off of LSU, scored 50-something. Brandon Spikes punted the ball over my head in the student section. I was there in 2010 for the weird fake field goal thing. I was there in 2012 for Muschamp when they ran the ball with Gillislee 100 times and beat LSU. In 06 and 08, that place was as good a stadium as you will have in the SEC. It was on fire. Urban Meyer had that thing humming. They had Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin and Chris Rainey and Jeff Demps and Aaron Hernandez and Riley Cooper and Brandon Spikes. And like, they were a freight train. And that place was on fire. 2012, nobody was really that excited about Muschamp. It was a boring brand of football. They ran it all the time, played defense. They weren't that good. It was pretty sleepy in the Swamp in 2012. I went back in 2020. That doesn't count because it was COVID and fog and the whole thing. But 2012, it was pretty sleepy. Florida's fan base is not quite as hardwired as some of the others in the league. Now, most stadiums have some empty seats when the team is not great. That's the case in Baton Rouge. That's the case in Athens. That's the case in Knoxville. Like, you don't fill 100,000 seat stadiums with teams that go 6-6. But like South Carolina would still bring it, and Tiger Stadium would still be pretty intimidating. The Swamp can fade pretty quickly. And I think that it's going to be, I think that stadium seats like 86. I would guess you're closer to 75 on Saturday. There's a large contingency of that fan base that does not think Billy Napier is the guy. There's not anything on the line. Their quarterback might not play. I don't think you're going to fill that place up. It's not going to be electric. And so LSU and Florida are both going to have to bring their own energy. And if you can't fight off that apathy, whether it's because you're playing a backup quarterback and you're going to lose your 7th game or because your at-large playoff chances are out the window, you can get beat. That's going to be a battle for both LSU and Florida. So to me, the 3 key matchups in this game, Florida's offensive line trying to run the ball on LSU's defensive front, Florida's defensive coordinator against Garrett Nussmeier trying to confuse him into those interceptions, and then both teams mentally being locked into the game and playing really hard. Not a guarantee at this point in this era of college football where guys can already be looking at their next stop. Just my thoughts on key matchups. You can read about it. Go into a little bit further depth with some numbers over on LouisianaSports.net. If you're looking at LouisianaSports.net today, there's plenty of stuff on the homepage. Always invite you to check it out. I mentioned the matchup to watch piece. Ross Jackson's got a great piece up about the defensive staff shakeup and what that did for the Saints back on Sunday. We chatted with Xavier and Thomas, who went kind of in depth into just how much work they do on punt return and kickoff return stuff, both during the week as well as on the sideline in game. They made an adjustment in the Alabama game that sprung a nice return in the kickoff game. So if you want to read something about that, you can do so at LouisianaSports.net. SEC Bowl projections are up. LSU women's basketball recruiting update. Josh Smith, American League Silver Slugger, got an update on that as well. So all the LSU, Saints, and SEC content you could crave is over there for free at LouisianaSports.net. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.